Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True, and today we're breaking down the new piece of legislation that proponents say will have long-reaching implications for the outdoor recreation world. We're talking about the Explore Act. Not long after appearing here on the Rock Fight, Jessica Turner and Chris Perkins and the rest of the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable were excited to announce that the Expanding Public Lands Outdoor Recreation Experiences, or Explore Act, passed unanimously through the House of Representatives Natural Resources Committee. Shortly after that, Justin Hausman and I talked about this development here on the Rock Fight, where it became clear that we needed a little more info about the act itself, how it differs from other pieces of legislation, and what to expect on the act's journey through Congress. So today, Jessica Turner is back to offer a TLDR on what the Explore Act is, why it's important, and what to expect from one of the most exciting developments to impact the outdoor recreation world in a very long time. Today on the Rock Fight, it's the Explore Act Explained with Jessica Turner from the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable. All right, well, we have Jessica Turner back with us from the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable. Just a couple weeks since you were here last time, Jess, so I appreciate you coming back on so quickly. This is great. I've got like a bat phone to the ORR, I feel like.
I know. It's good. You're in good hands.
Well, so when we last spoke, we touched on the Explore Act, but since that conversation, that act has passed through committee. Setting up a chain of positive media coverage. And Justin Hausman, who actually I just got off the phone with, and he's a journalist who comes on the show once a week, and we talked about it for a minute. And in that conversation with Justin, it kind of became clear that we needed a little bit more of an explainer about what the act is, why it's important, how it slots historically. So we've got a few minutes with you today. And of course, Justin couldn't make it, so we need to make fun of him for starting this conversation, but then not even bothering to show up. So
I know. That was, I just realized that like maybe last night. So I'm like, I want to talk to someone who thinks, they know. But anyway, my first question to him would have been, did you read the bill? Because it's about 300 pages. And it sounded like the answer was no. So I usually start there. Yeah, and I usually don't engage if people haven't read the bill, but because it's you and your show, I will.
Thank you.
Engage.
Well, the working title here is like the Explore Act Explained, right? So I guess for the probably, I'm sure, 10,000th time this week, what is the Explore Act?
Sure. So real high level, because it is a 300-page bill that is wonky and it is important. Like what is in the text has been worked on for decades by recreation user community, businesses, members of Congress. So it is very well designed and agency feedback. It's been through the ringer. So it is important what's in there, but really high level, it's a package of dozens of recreation bills that have come together in a bipartisan, bicameral way that really support every single outdoor activity and every segment so that more people can get outside and ultimately the land managers who manage these lands and waters have more tools in their toolbox because a lot of the ways they think about recreation and manage for recreation are antiquated, are historically maybe not something that they've prioritized, even though, some of them want to or they've been directed to. And there's a lot of things that have happened in the past decade or two or three, as you can imagine, in the recreation world, in climate change, in how people, want to access the outdoors and what they expect that the management side hasn't kept up to speed with. And so it's about time we update that. I think the important part, I might have mentioned this last time, is segments that are much bigger than ours or thought to be much bigger than ours, I should say, like agriculture and energy have these huge packages that throw tons of money at those things. And it happens every 3 or 4 years. And it's a really big deal. And we are actually bigger. $1 trillion economic impact is bigger. We employ more people. And we're not asking for billions of dollars. And we can get into why that is, in a second. But we're asking for really updated policies, procedures, and a focus on recreation, where recreation is the most important, value of the land, or where it's the most important value for the people that live, work, play around the land. And so it's a little different in that way, and just as important because we are a big growing force within the economy. And there's a couple things that we need to make sure that continues to happen.
So this past week, I spoke to the executive director of our local mountain bike association down here in San Diego. And we talked, she listened to our last episode. It's very complimentary of us, which was great. We did a great job. But so she said that, bigger acts like this don't tend to historically don't tend to kind of trickle down to the work she does on behalf of the mountain bikers in our community. So if you're going to kind of allocate, if this all passes, what could someone like in that role expect, from a piece of legislation like this?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume this one actually will nothing like this has ever been done before, so I guess it's kind of hard to compare.
Sure.
But it would directly impact one of the provisions is about mountain bike trails. There's a whole section on it, so it's called the BOLT Act. And it's about identifying and creating long distance mountain bike trails so that this growing segment of the mountain bike industry that likes to bike pack and camp and wants to go longer distance for longer periods of time has that connectivity of trails. Right now that doesn't exist. And right now the agencies aren't directed to scope for that. We're saying you should start thinking about that. You should scope for that. That is a part of the economy that's growing. That's an interest area that's growing. And we need, again, the land management side to keep up with that. And sometimes they need direction to allocate their time in that way or to know that they have the authority to do those things. I think on the mountain biking, permitting and guiding side, because there's a big part of this that helps guides and outfitters. A lot of people like myself, when I lived in the city, don't have access to transportation to mountain bike trails or to mountain bikes if you live in a small apartment and you can't lock up your bike. And so you have to go out with a guide or you have to go out with a group and they need a permit. And that's really hard to get. And that's why there's not a lot of them. And now this opens up a more equitable, clear, and transparent process for that. So hopefully there's actually more people ultimately mountain biking because they're getting in. A lot of people start mountain biking with a guide or an outfitter. They don't have the bike. They don't have the transportation. And those permits are really hard to come by and very confusing, not transparent, not easy for new groups and not easy to add people to, add more riders to. So all of that, I think for this particular example about mountain biking will be seen in the next couple of years if this bill passes.
Is there anything, because we talked a little bit when you were on last time as well about how kind of the natural, well, maybe not even natural, but the conflicts that can exist between even the segments of the recreation community. What will this address any of that in any way? Do you expect any sort of the positive fallout of something like this being passed to help address some of those issues that operate in silos?
I think there's just only so many slices of the pie, right? And so we got to make the pie bigger. And I think if land is managed better, there's enough land for all the activities we want to do. And there's enough places. Yeah. And conflicts often happen because of management or because there's a perceived you're getting more, I'm not getting my fair share. So a lot of this, there's not one pointed part of the bill that addresses that, but a lot of this is if there's, more long distance mountain biking trails and we're talking to the horse community on the front end to make sure there's not horse conflicts, they're going to be built in a way that user conflict hopefully is completely mitigated or at least, much more mitigated than it might be on trails that exist today. Or we're going to, make sure parking lots can fit the mountain bike, the people coming in vehicles with a mountain bike and the RVs and the people with horses. And right now they're on top of each other. And yeah, that's a conflict that creates, I think bad blood in the user community. And it's not a user. I mean, I like to say it's not a user, it's a management, problem. It's not and throwing in management problem. I don't mean that the land management agencies aren't doing a good job because they're doing as much as they can with as little as they have. But they need, new tools. They need to think about things differently. And they need the direction from Congress that recreation is the priority. We need to get this done. And so I think a lot of this goes to the very well-meaning and the very deeply caring land managers who do all the wonderful things and support all the wonderful things that we're able to do. This is a leg up for them, too. It's not like you're not doing your job. In some cases, maybe. But in most cases, it's we want to help you do your job. And it's more of a partnership.
So the one thing Justin and I were talking about when we were chatting about it when it passed committee, he referenced the Land and Water Conservation Fund from 1965 specifically, I guess, because he thought that is something that's typically funded from energy. It comes from the
oil and gas receipts.
Thank you. There, exactly. That's what I was trying to say. So I think part of the thing about the Explorer Act is that it is not funded by taxpayer money. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the difference is that LWCF was that bill that we helped pass and our community came to help pass. What we did was we got it permanently authorized so that it's going to happen forever, hopefully in perpetuity. We also made sure that we were getting it fully funded, which is $900 million a year, which is what comes from the oil and gas receipts from the Outer Continental Shelf into the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And those receipts have traditionally not all been captured, and they traditionally haven't all gone back to the things they're supposed to. So now we're saying, okay, this money's supposed to come in, and we're supposed to allocate all of that to conservation and recreation, mostly conservation that has recreation access components. The difference, and I think our bill just doesn't have a score at all. It doesn't cost any money. So that LWCF bill package with some maintenance backlog things that we were getting, it was a $14 billion tag. That's a massive amount of money over 10 years. It wasn't funded through taxpayer dollars, but it was funded through something. There was something that we funded it from. This doesn't have a score at all. This isn't about money. This is about authorities and policy. And so there are two totally different sides of the coin. One is an appropriations. We're giving money to these things. We're creating accounts. And one is an authorizing. We're creating new ways of operating, new ways of thinking, a new direction on how we manage lands. And you need both, right? You can't really, you have a ton of funding if the management agencies don't know what to do with it, or it's not being put in the right places, and you can't have great policy if you don't have any money. So the two things go hand in hand, and I think they're both really important. But I think he was confused because we said our bill is the first recreation package ever, which it is, and it's not. Doesn't cost the taxpayer any money. It's not the first bill that doesn't cost taxpayer money. It's just the first recreation package. And I think the value add is that we're not asking for the government to spend a lot of money on that. We've got some money and we'd love more to work with, but we actually want to make sure that money's going to the right things and is having the biggest impact. And this bill helps that.
Listen, he's not here to defend himself, and he's a giant curmudgeon. So it's fine. He didn't need to bring that even up, I think, on that episode. Let's just be honest, guys,
Well, I mean, I think it's just I listened admittedly super late last night after a long couple days, but
well, thank you.
You're welcome. But I think it's easy to generalize about how important these things are. And then there's people that are in the weeds, creating good policy every day. And some of our members who really rely on this, there's segments of the industry, the climbing. I mean, we haven't even talked about the climbers who will not have access to climbing in wilderness, period, if this bill doesn't pass, period. Bolts are no longer allowed. If the agencies,
I thought that was still in the, the access fund is you can write in about it. That's actually, you feel like that's where that's going to go? Is that that's going to get wiped out?
Well, I think that this bill's going to pass. So I think it's going to be fine. I think there's some real, it's a real threat. There is a real threat there, and this bill addresses it. And again, well-meaning, there's things, but there's just, that's how people access climbing. Most people, and Alex Honnold will be the first to say, he's one of the very few that doesn't need that. Most people do need bolts when they're climbing, and most people having these backcountry experiences, it does overlap with wilderness areas, and those places, those things have been around for a really long time. So there's some real, I think there's some real industries that feel that this bill and user groups is really important. And there's probably some industries who are like, oh, this is nice. This is great. I think it definitely runs the gamut. But as a whole, it's groundbreaking because A, it's really good policy, and B, it's the first time it's happened that the communities come together like this.
Well, I know you don't have much time, so what is next? What are the challenges that still stand in the way? You think it's going to pass, but what's up next for the Explore Act?
Yeah, so I think the House will pass the bill, and then it'll go over to the Senate.
Really? Seriously?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Well, they don't have a good reputation right now. Okay, I'm sorry.
I know. I told you it was going to pass committee. It passed committee.
That's true.
I think we're in a place where Congress can't get much done, and this is just a win-win-win. It's Democrat, Republican, business, American people. It's a good thing, and so far, I feel that we've brought together the right coalition of groups, of nonprofits, of businesses, of partners, and the right champions. We have some real champions that want to see this get done. There's a million things that could go wrong, and it surprises me every day that what can pop out of nowhere. But I would, if I had to crystal ball, I'd say, this bill will be passed in the House in the next month and a half, and it'll go over to the Senate. And we very much hope that the Senate will take it up. They already passed it out of committee, so it's not a huge lift. We just need to, ensure it stays top of mind. And, I think there was a component that came up too that I want to address because Justin had said, well, I never have a problem with the access. What's with the access? And That's a very wonderful thing to be able to say that, but there's 100 million people that don't have access to green space, 28 million youth. And so just because you or I didn't have problem going and doing our favorite outdoor activity today, like part of this, and I'd say a huge chunk of this is actually about not us. It's not about us. It's about people who haven't even thought about recreation because it's so far literally from something that they're able to tap into. And so there's a lot of provisions that focus on people with disabilities who don't have access because the trails aren't built right and the water infrastructure isn't built right. Veterans coming back and that transition to civilian life, and just especially young people and people in urban populations that don't have green park within 5 minutes, 5 miles, making sure we can create those places and siphoning off some of the funds from LWCF to make sure that they go appropriately to urban areas and that tribes can access those dollars. So yeah, I think the access conversation, and it doesn't affect me, is like great because it's maybe not our target for this bill, and hopefully we can all think about the value we get from being outside and that should be shared with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly why I'm so glad you came back on. I mean, and like I'm giving Justin a hard time, but in his defense too, like these conversations you can kind of lose yourself in all the particulars of it. And it's like, well, my experience isn't like that. What does this even mean when you're reading it in a press release, right? So having this clarification is super helpful. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Yes, happy to. And it's good luck. So now that I said it's going to pass in the House and the show, that'll happen, and then we can talk after that.
Okay, and the next time you're going to come on, and we're going to celebrate it passing, and then we're going to all wish for $5 million to show up in our bank account, and it's just going to happen because you've proven that when you come on, these things happen.
5 million. I mean, let's
go higher. What am I saying? I'm telling you, why am I lowballing us? Yeah.
Yeah. So, happy to answer any questions. We actually have a huge stakeholder call in 10 minutes with about 100 organizations that have been working on this to
just tell them you were recording with the Rock Fight and they'll understand.
I will. So you can listen to everything we have to say over on the podcast.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll make sure we'll have you on again soon, hopefully to talk about it passing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, that's the show for today. What did you think? Did that answer all of your Explore Act questions? Send your follow-up questions and all of your compliments to myrockfight@gmail.com. Before you move on to that next podcast, take a quick second to follow The Rock Fight wherever you are listening to subscribe to the show. And also, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. The Rock Fight is a production of Rock Fight LLC. I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. And here to take us out, straight from the Less Than Jake tour bus, it's Krista Makes with the Rock Fight fight song. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters.